button here. 17.2.
Let me see. Because, see, it says 56.3 on mine.
Oh, there it is. You're right. Well, what? There are two different numbers. What is this 17.2 and 56.3 nonsense? I'm literally, it's on this, it's the same thing. Like the playhead neck underneath the
I see
playhead
the
says
17.2.
17.2.
Yeah, I do.
Well, you can see my confusion then. Oh,
But I
well.
saw multiple people report it as 45 million this morning.
This morning, well, we're at 56. Well, that's a few more than just 3 nights worth of Tucker. That's a lot of Tucker.
Maybe there's a difference between watching the tweet in preview mode and then actually clicking into it.
That is possible. Well, I tell you what. All right, Elon, if you're listening, you explained this to us. What is this discrepancy between these two things? But also, Elon, if you're listening, feel free to retweet us.
Right.
And then everyone else who's listening, welcome. Welcome to our conversation. We're going to let you in on a little bit of the background here. We're talking about what should be at this point apparent. We're talking about Tucker Carlson and Tucker's Twitter because Tucker is no longer on Fox. So we're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into a few more things today. But let me welcome you to our unauthorized caucus. It is Thursday. It is noon. It is caucus time. So thank you for being with us. And let me go ahead and remind you to find us on the socials, whether you're here on Facebook, Twitter right now, Rumble, YouTube. Hit the like button, share this link with a friend, hit the subscribe button, big green on Rumble, big red on YouTube, and also on YouTube, hit that little notification bell to make sure you know when we go live, when we post something new from the archives. I want to make sure that you're there. But if all else fails and the censors come for us, which inevitably they will, do not forget to go to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up for our email list. That is the number one way we can keep in touch with you, and we make sure you know what's going on and we get what you need to know straight to you. So thank you for joining us. Andrew, thank you for being with me as always. My faithful and trusty co-host. I was going to say sidekick, but I'm not going to. You're not a sidekick. You're at least a main kick. Like you're up there in the front. But
I appreciate that.
we are glad to be with you here today. So there's a what?
No, I appreciate that. I like being a main kick.
Yeah, the main kick. That's good. That's good. You can be the main kick. Well, folks, a lot has happened, and this has opened up a conversation. And actually, we were having a little bit of this yesterday during a class. A little bit of this conversation about media, the state of our media today. And this kind of brings us down. I know that we've talked about Elon Musk buying Twitter, free speech, big tech, censorship, but the conversation about media, the media machine, the big media end of this narrative machine that we talk about, this is really pretty scary stuff. And I don't know if we as conservatives have landed on a solution yet. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. We kind of want to use this Tucker story as a launch pad for that. And then I got at least one link here we're going to post. But this is going to be a little bit more of a freewheeling conversation today, maybe, because I have some ideas and some questions that Andrew and I haven't even talked about necessarily. I want to know his thoughts. And I think this is something that all of us need to be concerned about because, again, I mean, if you are cut off from information, how can you effectively make decisions to lead your family, to lead yourself, to lead the nation, to be a part of that civic responsibility that we all have if you don't know what is or isn't true because that information is cut off from you? So this is a big conversation. Let me set it up and preface, and then Andrew, if you have just a couple initial thoughts, I'll ask you. But I mean, basically, for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, Tucker Carlson, inarguably at this point by the ratings, the biggest cable television figure on TV right now, or was until Monday. Friday night was Tucker's last show, the Tucker Carlson Tonight Show on Fox. It turned out he was fired on Monday morning. Maybe sometime over the weekend. It was told to them apparently on Monday. So there's a lot of stuff floating around, whether it was truly fired or if he walked out or if he said fire me and left. Who knows the exact details? But he and Fox have parted ways. And this is a big deal. We've known for a long time that he is definitely a truth speaker and has not necessarily shared the same views or hesitations as the owners of Fox. But this is big to fire your chief moneymaker and view getter. This is a big deal. So I would assume, I think most people assume with me, this would be ideological, but this leads us into a whole conversation about the Murdochs, about the big six, about big media and how it all works. So Andrew, what are your initial reactions to what we're seeing with the Tucker thing here, whether it was the firing itself or anything he said as a result since?
Yeah, so I listened to Tucker's, and it went pretty viral. I know a lot of people shared it. Tucker's Heritage Foundation speech. That was really his final speech and oration as a Fox News employee that we were able to view and listen to. And I encourage everyone to go listen to that. And maybe Ryan, you can drop a link to that Heritage Foundation speech that he gave. It's really great, and he really gives this pretty much this treatise on praying for our country, for returning to the roots. For insanity, going against insanity and being sane, fighting against transgender ideology. He lays out a lot of really good points that are system disrupting points, and they're very true. And he talks about being honest, the power of honesty, the power of honest people. And I think that Tucker really was, in the truest sense, the last mainstream media personality and mainstream media host that had a worldview and had a backbone to be able to speak truth courageously. There are still some people on mainstream media that, I think they're conservative. I think they're fairly decent in some regards, but they weren't at near the level of Tucker. They weren't, fully red pilled. That's the term we use, Ryan, often.
Yeah.
I don't think, some of these guys that are on Fox News, I can't think of anybody who was as courageous for speaking the truth about the war in Ukraine, the January 6th insurrection, whatever it may be, transgenderism, election fraud. Tucker hit these things, and he hit them hard, and he hit them courageously. So I think his firing, no matter what it was, there's a lot of different theories. It was maybe his speech that he gave at the Heritage Foundation talking about prayer was too religious for Murdoch. Maybe it was this Dominion voting systems legal case that cost Fox News, something along the lines of $700 something million and crazy amount.
No, not billion. Almost $1 billion.
Almost $1 billion.
Yeah.
So it was like 700 million something, right? Wasn't it like 750?
787. Yeah.
His opposite reason Tucker parting from Fox News, it comes back to an ideology, right? Even if it's the Dominion thing and the Dominion legal case and the litigious nature of that, that's an ideological thing. Because if you can't report and investigate some truths and some potential stories that we might have regarding the election of the president of the United States, and you're going to get fired for that, that's an ideological discussion that we can have. If it's on his religious statements that he has made, that's an ideological discussion that we can have. But no matter what the outlet is by which people justify his firing or, peg his firing upon, it's an ideological statement. And the bottom line is, nobody can in truth watch mainstream media. And when I say mainstream, I'm talking about legacy news, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, whatever it may be. You pick them, cable news. Even Newsmax falls under this sometimes. There's some stories about Newsmax, about some different things that have happened on that network that not perfectly in line with complete and utter free speech.
Right.
The question becomes, where are people who want the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth? Where are they going to go? And I think the answer lies in independent journalism and independent organizations that exist outside of this big six mentality. And you can get into that, Ryan, because I know you have a lot of research into that. But I think that really is going to that 10% outside of this 90% huge pool of people who own all these different companies. We're going to have to go there, and Tucker's probably going to go there, and we all need to follow him.
Yeah. And you mentioned it, and I mean, we can dive off into this. You kind of gave a little bit of a hint here toward the discussion of what to do about it. But I think that, we all know, and that's the thing. I had the opportunity. I was actually over at the Pillar Foundation this week doing a class on media and finding truth in the news. And it's kind of interesting to be able to walk through with a group of young people this progression, because there's, all the way back to the 1890s with Joseph Pulitzer and William Randolph Hearst. We have oh my goodness, the word is gone, but we have yellow journalism, but I was going to say we have the not subscription wars, but the whatever.
Clickbait.
But the clickbait wars. I'm sorry, the word is gone now, and I don't know why. But I mean, we've got this war over circulation. That's the word I was going for. We got the circulation wars. I need more than the other guy. I have to start sensationalizing it. We make it exciting. Well, if you trace that all the way forward, and then you move down the just the necessary technological advancement and how our world got bigger than ever before. We can drive farther on a daily basis. We can listen to news from across the world in an instant. Whereas, World War I, we were getting reports back and forth on letters, and the telegraph was new. I mean, all of those things necessitate the world getting bigger to each of us, but also things start to combine and we have less local news, more big news. All of those things have really just brought this consolidation of power to fruition, so that bad actors who want to control all of the information are actually able to. And it runs all the way down to and this is the numbers that I was sharing that you talked about. And this kind of blew my mind, because we all know, we've watched the march from sensational journalism and getting stuff hyped up to having a little bit of a left-wing bias to, when you and I were growing up and our parents were listening to Rush Limbaugh, oh, the mainstream media bias, MSM. And now you and I operate in the era of fake news. This march forward, we all know about, but I think we don't really realize how terrifying it is. And I started looking at this. 90%, now understand these numbers, 90% of the media that we consume, that's not just TV and Hollywood, this is the publishing houses for books, audio studios for podcasts, internet companies, news companies, Hollywood, TV studios. 90% of what you and I read and watch and listen to is owned by 6 companies. Only 6. Comcast, Walt Disney, AT&T, Paramount Global, Sony, and Fox. 6 companies own 90% of the media in America. And then there's about 5,200 companies that own the other 10%. This is different. 40 years ago, in 1983, 40 years ago, that 90% of the media wasn't owned by 6 companies. It was owned by 50. 1 per state. That's the way to think of it. That is a drastic shift in almost yours and my lifetime. I wasn't quite born in 1983 yet, neither were you, but that's close. Almost in our lifetimes, we have shifted. 90% of the media is owned from 50 to 6 companies now. That's terrifying. And this is really, and I see someone here, Love Horses, putting down the trust busting era. That's right. This is one of the things where you have that moment of realization and say, wait a minute, Standard Oil, wait a minute, Comcast, you own too much, because now you can, by the very nature of it, squash anything you don't like and literally, not allow the truth to come forward. You almost can control the First Amendment because you're in everybody's homes. They have no choice. So these were like scary numbers to kind of look back to. I saw the other one, even as of a few years ago, every single news media company, all of the news outlets at least, answer back to one of 15 different billionaires. So 15 billionaires could sit in a room and decide one thing that we're going to say on the media overnight, less than overnight. And that makes a whole lot of sense. You start seeing, I don't know, Andrew, have you seen some of these viral reels on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook? They're going everywhere, where they talk about, you really think that, that the media narrative isn't a thing. Watch this. And you see local news station after local news station, identical language. And I mean, not just like, oh, that's coincidental. How many words could you say about this topic? No. Identical language coming into it. And it just screen after screen after screen, layering the audio on top of each other. Well, all of those people who work across all the 50 states plus territories work for one of 15 different billionaires. I mean, that's you are one conference call away from something being completely hidden from our view, and we would never know about it. That's terrifying. So when you start to put this down and you realize that you have a Tucker, a truth sayer, who has an ideological difference with the Murdochs, which we don't really have to go down the whole path of the Murdoch family now, but suffice it to say, they're no conservatives. Even if you and I have something we disagree with Tucker on, the Murdoch family is not our cup of tea. They are liberal and Democrat and leftist and all the different things over the years they have been. They're not our kind of people as far as ideology goes. For Tucker to be fired by them when he is the biggest view getter, ratings, and that's all that matters in the cable world is ratings for the most part. That's a big deal. You start to see the rub here of, one of the 6 most powerful companies in the world decided you're out. We've had, enough of you. And he's actually the guy that everyone seems to agree with. This gets pretty terrifying pretty quick. The big six. And actually I have a graphic. If I can find it, I'll post a link to it, but it's just a tangled web to look at. It's really kind of crazy, but this has become something that I think is on our radar with big tech, and as a result, we've started to see things pop up. This is also something big media has come into. But here's my question to you. So the truth sayers, the people who want to have and you're right, this isn't even just about speaking what is absolutely true. This is even more fundamentally about offering to have the conversation, asking the question, and saying, well, where's all of the information? I don't even know exactly what I think about this yet. I want to know where all the rest of the information is first. Not even allowed to ask that question on a lot of stations anymore, if any at all. There are people who have broken off of the system. I think that right now, probably the best example of that is the Daily Wire, who, the Daily Wire folks, they speak the truth. They talk about conservative issues. But more importantly than that, they are setting up this new media empire, a new streaming service to fight back against big news. Now that, of course, we've got the big tech shade of it. Where are your servers located? Are you on Amazon? Can they just cut you in a heartbeat? We've seen that happen to people before. But this brings it in. So looking at efforts like the Daily Wire with DW Plus and what they're doing, do you think that is this parallel economy idea, open our own? Do you think that is sustainable, or do you think that actually only brings over the folks who already agree with us, and now we're all in the echo chamber together, but we are not getting the attention of the people who just flip on the news at night? Are those folks ever going to come over to a Daily Wire Plus, or are we never going to break their attention, their connection to the matrix, unless we manage to overthrow some of these big six, some of the media? What do you think, Andrew? Is that even a viable option to move forward with? Because it seems nice, but does it actually get us anywhere in the long run?
I think it absolutely does. And I'm really actually pretty passionate about this, because I think we pretty much already have a lot of the tools that we need to win this fight. I think there's a free market answer to this, Ryan. And I think that free market answer is things like the Daily Wire, the Daily Caller, the New American, the Epic Times, the Post Millennial. Insert one of these organizations in one of these publications. They have great, intelligent people working for them, and they produce really good content. And you have folks like the Daily Wire who make things that are far more cultural. You have people like the Epic Times and the New American who have really good research and writing and reporting and journalism that's really, really watertight. There's a lot of different talents. So I think we already have a big part of, and that is that the free market can really be a balance to this. And it's not like Fox News doesn't put some good stuff on. They do. There's been a great Fox News mini-series they did on education. I know our friend Alex Newman was in that and was a part of that, and that was a great mini-series they did on Fox Nation. It's not like they don't do things that are really good. They really do in many regards. But as a whole, for how big they are, there's definitely other options that people need to go to and need to be a part of. So I think there is an element of that where just educating people about these different publications and resources and getting them to go over there. And then this is the other element of it, Ryan. That stuff is also profitable, and that's where the free market element comes into this. The Daily Wire, for example, really knows how to sell, and they really are a business. They're not a 501c3, they're an LLC, and they make money off of what they do, and they make a lot of it. It's very profitable. So I think that conservatives really have a big element here to play, and we can get into culture, we can get into movies and cinema, we can get into music, we can get into news and media. And I'm not really scared of the whole echo chamber conversation, because if the echo chamber is an echo chamber of truth, then I'll reside in that echo chamber. I have no problem with that.
Sure.
But I think this is profitable, and some movies even have shown this. Movies that aren't even conservative, they're just not woke, have made a killing at the box office, right? Top Gun Maverick, for example, made a killing. Even little silly things. I haven't seen this, but I know it did very well. Super Mario Bros. Made like $1 billion, I think it was, Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
$1 billion. And it wasn't because it was conservative, because I don't think it was, from my understanding. It just wasn't woke. It didn't have a super liberal agenda. And that sells. So not only is there just a principle, let's have free speech, let's have open debate, let's allow the truth to resonate and be shared. But there's also a free market profitability to this, where not only is this the right thing to do, but people can make a living off of this, and people can make a profit off of it. And that's a good thing to realize. And I think an element of this is people like you and I and people watching this stream, we need to tell people, hey, check out the Epic Times, check out the New American, check out Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, sign up to these emailing lists. And it's not because you're trying to get them on a mailing list and, expand your network. Necessarily, but it's because you want to share the truth. And I think there's an educational element to this, of sharing that with people and saying, hey, do you know that 90% of media is controlled by 6 entities? When you watch Fox News, when you watch CNN, when you go on, Yahoo News on your search browser or whatever you may do, you're literally thinking of it as a siphon. All this stuff's coming down. It's being funneled through these 6 entities. Do you really want to be controlled like that? Or would you rather have a broader mind and access multiple different outlets of free independent journalists and have a more well-rounded portfolio of information? I think people, after a rational conversation like that, hopefully would be open to it and will be able to take this nucleus of good groups and publications that we already have that are doing well and expand that to make that 10% apart from the big 6 that have 90 and grow that out. And hopefully people like Fox and people like CNN will realize, whoa, mainstream media, legacy media, the sun is setting on us. And the rise of independent journalism, people like James O'Keefe, that is coming and it's going to be dominant. And I think that's the element. So I think there's a free market element to this. There's a principle element of this. And I think we have what we need to win. It's just getting those materials in people's hands.
And see, that's you knock on an interesting door, and I'm actually glad that you said that, because that reminds me there's something here to be said. First of all, this reminds me of you want to talk about, I know a lot of people still want to, well, some of the folks I've known or seen still want to talk about, oh, well, this must just be a business decision because of the nearly, $800 million that Fox is going to have to fork out. No, it's not, because the day that they announced Tucker was gone, they lost what, 5 or 6 billion in market share. No, it's not an economic decision. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
This is an ideological decision that doesn't care about economic ramifications. Now, you're knocking on an interesting point, because this is my worry, and I think a lot of other people's. Yeah, I don't mind living in the echo chamber. We're all speaking the truth. We're being honest. That's great. But the thing is, that's us. But out of this many people, if that's us and there's this many of them, then what about these folks? Can these folks actually make the leap to come over here, or are they just going to continue to mindlessly flip on what's there and free, and they didn't have to go and find it, which you have to do with the Daily Wire? But you raise an interesting point, because my worry, and I know a lot of people's worry, how do we actually get people to come to that side? The interesting thing here is it's true. The dollar speaks. What is the phrase? The almighty dollar. It speaks, and it's a very powerful mistress for most of these companies. Now, I think we're about to find out, because I think that some people, me included, would say, well, where's the line of I don't care what financial hit that I take, I'm going to do what my ideology tells me, the woke companies say. Well, let's test them. I think it's time to test them. Target was willing to take massive hits, but guess what? Target ended up recovering and they came back. Target won that round, even though some of us stopped shopping there because of the lunacy that they decided to throw into their stores. It didn't hurt enough. So here's the question. Can we hurt big media enough? Or do they not have a line? Are we going to have to drive some of them completely bankrupt and out of business? But that's the only thing that works. And that's the interesting point that you raised. It's not even, there is a path forward. It's not necessarily convincing everyone out here in the middle land to come over to our side and look at these media sources. It is quite literally ending, bankrupting, punishing economically with our consumer dollars these folks. And that's a very interesting thing, because you're right. It's profitable. It sells. And heck, Top Gun and Super Mario Brothers are the last 2 movies we saw in theaters. And sure enough, I look at it and go, yeah, no wonder these are so profitable. People aren't getting a message shoved down their throat. And when I think that, Marvel and Disney are proving this, when you prioritize your messaging, which isn't even popular with the largest group of people, when you prioritize messaging over the art form, your art form sucks. And the movies are bad. The stories are bad. The acting is bad, because this is not the priority anymore. No one wants that. Everyone goes and sees these fun things that actually are just entertaining, and they've got good traditional truths. And sometimes it's mildly patriotic, even if it's not a good pro story. But the question is, does everyone realize that's what they're doing? Do those 100, does that over $1 billion, it was over $1 billion, wasn't it, that Mario Brothers made in the first?
Over $1 billion.
Do the people who spent that over $1 billion actually realize the difference between what they're spending their money on there and their monthly bill for Disney Plus when they go and watch The Mandalorian, which is tanking as an artistic endeavor, all of the Marvel stuff, all the Star Wars stuff, as it tanks down into the oblivion of wokeness? That's the real question. Is we see it. You and I, the conservatives, obviously, are looking at the data and making our own conclusion. But the question is, and this is the worry, are other people going to get over the hump and understand, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to see these things anymore, so I'm going to stop paying for them. So is it up to us to drive these folks out of business? That's a very interesting and viable path forward. Because again, I think that the worry is these folks aren't going to understand. Well, you don't have to wake everyone up. And I hate to, we've talked about this before, The Matrix. The Matrix movies are a fantastic analogy for where we are right now, whether you're into sci-fi or not. That whole premise of other people just completely being absolutely unaware of what we're in the middle of, that's like an excellent analogy. So going with that, do you need to wake everyone up, or can you break the machine and everyone wakes up because the machine stops working?
Mm-hmm.
There are two very interesting paths forward. One of them is very difficult to convince the majority of the population. The other one's a very interesting thing. I like that you bring it. Yeah, and I see red pills and all kinds of stuff going by on the comment section over here.
Yeah,
this is good stuff.
I want to add something here.
Yeah.
The Marxist left is very willing to lose money on these things. Like, you really think Bud Light thought they were going to make money on having Dylan Mulvaney be a sponsor? I really don't think they thought that was going to be a huge monetary gain for them, but they were willing to do it to make the statement. Right. And I think that they need to realize that there is actually some bite behind conservative bark when people realize, wait a minute, if we actually do run ads like this, we're going to lose money. And they have. And I think that's a good thing, because you've seen Bud Light start to take some steps back now as a result of that ad they did with the transgender man, Dylan Mulvaney. So I think that the left is willing to lose money over this. It's just actually walking away from it, voting with your dollar. Somebody said in the comments, they said, vote with your dollar. Very true principle to be able to do that. Right. But Ryan, I want to address something you said, because you made a comment which I think is very legitimate. And you said, regarding the echo chamber, can we get people outside of it? Yeah, maybe we can grow it for us, but can we get outside people to come in? And I think the answer to that is yes, if done tactically right. And one of my favorite examples of that's very recent, is a documentary that was released, What is a Woman by the Daily Wire. That was a cultural item that they released. It was not just an echo chamber conservative documentary. It was a cultural moment. It was viral in state legislatures were using the terms, using statistics from the film and from the documentary. It made it into the halls of government. It made it into the halls of public discourse. It made it on Twitter. It made it on Instagram. It made it on TikTok. People were taking clips from the What is a Woman Daily Wire documentary, all these different social media platforms. It's viral across the board. They made a buttload of money off it. And there was a tidal wave effect of that, of different conservative groups and organizations taking that and talking about it and expanded it. Even what we're doing here with Unauthorized Caucus. I looked at this a couple days ago. I think the most viewed episode of Unauthorized Caucus was titled What is a Woman? And it had like 1,000 plus views. And it was you guys, and you talked about the documentary a little bit. And it had this tidal wave effect. And my question to, well, what's the success of that? They had branding, they had marketing, they had a very cultural, relevant, pointed message that they put out there. And it was high tech, it was slick, and it was trendy. And they didn't compromise principles in doing that, but they played the game and they played it well. And not only was it impactful, but they made money off of it. And it's not like making money. I don't say that over and over again, because I think that's the ultimate end goal. But it proves a point that people are willing to, put some skin in the game to watch this. And by the way, if I remember correctly, What is a Woman was behind a paywall forever. And people paid and saw that and got Daily Wire subscriptions and canceled them afterwards just to watch the documentary. So I think it can grow beyond an echo chamber. It just has to be marketed well, has to be branded well. And I think that the right has always had an issue with message marketing. And I think we could get so much better at that. And a part of that is a big demographic of the right is an older population. And that's amazing and great. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the one thing the left does have on their side is youth. And I think that we need to, on the right, be able to take the youth that we do have and try to get into the technological space. And we talked about this yesterday, Ryan, you and I did privately, about memes and, short form content, that is what the next generation is consuming. They're not reading an awful lot of long form articles or book reviews or even watching documentaries. They're watching short form, sometimes 10 seconds to 5-minute pieces of content that they consume on social media. And I think that we as the right need to utilize that more. And a couple organizations have. The Babylon Bee, Turning Point USA, and the Daily Wire are the three that come to mind. But we could really tap into this. And even people who aren't super trendy, and I'm not saying this to attack him. I love the guy. I think he's fantastic. Jordan Peterson. right? Very deep, very intellectual. He's not somebody who's super trendy. I mean, he wears a 3-piece suit, right? And
I
he
don't know.
talks
I've
with big
seen that
words.
man's dress. He's Canadian. They're trendy. It's what it tells
Yeah,
me, the internet.
yeah. But he's a very formal, very studious, very academic guy. But
Yeah,
he knows how to do branding and he knows how to do
right.
marketing. And he reaches teenagers and people in the early 20s. And he's an older, very studious, very academic, professor-like character. So I don't think it's, an issue regarding those type of things. It's just branding the messaging to get it to the right people. And I think we can get better at that as conservatives.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that we are definitely seeing that turn start in several different places. And to your point, I mean, it makes money. Which, by the way, I'd like to take this opportunity. Here's your history. The more you know from Ryan. Yes, they did. The Daily Wire did, in fact, make a buttload of money from the What is a Woman. But I'd like everyone to understand this is not two weirdos that are young talking weird slang to each other. A butt is an actual unit of measurement that has to do with about 480 liters in a wine vat that was shipped back and forth across the Atlantic in the 1700s. So a buttload is an actual unit of measurement. I've had this discussion with people before. It's neither here nor there. I'll move on. Sorry.
Wow,
I'm stepping down off of my literary soapbox, my grammatical soapbox inside of the caucus. I apologize for the extra layer of unauthorizedness. Thank you. I'm seeing laughter in the comment section here in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, to your point, they made a ton of money off of it. And even if they're making that off of the echo chamber, and that's not new people coming in to see it, the money gives them more power to push it further toward the people, to do more damage to legacy and traditional media. Great trivia. You're right, Mark. It is great trivia. See, you come here for trivia night and you'll learn things, even though we're talking politics and culture. But that gives an incredible amount of power to move forward and do that. And, I've noticed one thing, and let me say this, because this is the interesting thing. As the Charlie Kirks, as the Michael Knowles, as the Ben Shapiros go out into the world and do these college campus speeches, it really is interesting. I have noticed especially with Matt Walsh, I have noticed an interesting and a very specific change in tone since the release. But leading up to that, I feel like amongst conservatives and especially amongst liberals who love to hate, not liberals, leftists who love to hate on Matt Walsh, he really kind of had the persona of being, for lack of a better term, a little bit of an a-hole. Like, he was a jerk. And I think that he kind of fed into that a little bit, and he was portrayed that quite a bit. But since that film has come out, I have noticed as he's gone out and done speeches, there is now in the last several months and weeks, clip after clip after clip after clip of him being able to engage someone, a young person who identifies as trans or something that has come in,
Yep.
and his response has softened, because as these kids start to walk down this path, as we as a society start to walk down this confused path, and you can only go so far before it falls apart, because it is not based on fact or reality or truth or biology. This will come crashing down on you at some point. And that's what we saw in What is a Woman, from people who have walked down this road and then detransitioned. There is no coming back from a lot of it. Their response to people has just been one of compassion and really this, I am going to tell you the truth. And I know that it's not what you want to hear, but everyone keeps telling what you want to hear, and look where you are. I am going to do you the honor and the justice and the privilege. What you deserve is to be told the truth. I'm going to be honest with you. And it's because I care about you, because I think that you have value and dignity. I think that comes from God. You may not agree with me, but I know that it does. You have value, and I'm being honest with you, and no one else has. And I've started to see that shift happen. And there really is. Not only are they being successful, not only are they making money from us, from the echo chamber, but they are starting to make a very specific turn that I think is going to start to attract young people who are not just out in the middle and don't know what to think. We're generations deep into indoctrination from the left through our school system now. These young people almost don't know how to comprehend some of the stuff that we're saying. But when their lives start to crash and burn, and they start to lash out in desperation, to have people who are willing to extend that hand of compassion, who have the ability and the money with a megaphone to do so, that is going to be key. So I think actually that we've come full circle here. Is it good enough to be able to actually reach people, or is that not going to be effective? Hey, we're making money, we can get farther. These two things come back here at the other side of this conversation. with that ability to have a bigger reach with our bigger budget, we can actually extend the hand. And as these folks start to have their lives crash, they realize this isn't working. Can I tell you the truth? And it's not because I want to be right. It's because I care about you, and you deserve to know the truth. I'm starting to see a little bit of that turn. Now, where it goes, I don't know. But I've noticed that. And just as I've been watching stuff, I've noticed that. So you're right, though. I mean, that's Daily Wire's on the lead end of that, because it's always, I see short clip, and then click here for the full episode, which I go to, but probably not everyone else does. So there's a lot of lessons in there. For consumers, we need to remember the power of speech that we have in our dollars. For people who we're giving those dollars to, there's a lot of lessons for how you can use them, and we get better with the effective messaging. But for all of us, this is a huge conversation. And Tucker, just the tip of the iceberg this week to remember. It's not just Tucker and Fox and mainstream bias. No, there are 6 companies, 15 billionaires that run all the news in America. And those people have a very specific ideology and a very specific worldview, and it is not in common with the majority of us down here at the normal, everyday working class level of America. And there's a lot of work to be done there. So this is a huge conversation that I think we're only scratching the surface of, but we've gone about 36 minutes now. I know we like to try to wrap it up here. I'm going to read through the comments. You got anything to close us out on here? And then I'll bring us down, but I'm going to look through before we shut down here the chat.
Yeah, I beat this drum hard, and I try to do this so to share it with people. And it's, something we need to do over and over again. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but you'll forgive me, is that find good sources, find reliable sources, whether that be Phyllis Schlafly, whether that be any of the institutions or organizations or publications that we talked about today, and read stuff in your spare time that they produce that's good, that's quality, and share it with people. Post it on social media. Send it in an email to somebody you know. Text it to somebody. Share information. All too often we read and we think, but we need to share that stuff with others constantly. And maybe they don't read it, but at least we had a duty and a responsibility to share something with somebody, and who knows what will come of that. There's been many times where people sent me something and I watched it and read it and passed it on to somebody else, and they passed it on to somebody else, and who knows where it went after that. And you just think of kind of the force multiplying element of that we probably have no idea how impactful that can be. But at least we're trying to do something, and that's something everybody can do. So in a sense, we can all be distributors. So I'd encourage everyone to do that. Yeah,
it's hard. It's hard work. And that's the reality. I mean, that's the single takeaway. And that's what I'll leave us on and close. This is hard work. This is grinding out the Phyllis Schlafly way, the grassroots way, one person at a time. If I can take 5 minutes here and 10 minutes here to communicate this to another person, whether they say, yeah, you're right. Well, you know what? Maybe that friend of yours who agrees with you is about to be challenged at work, and they would back down then, except for your constant feeding of that. No, you're right. Look at this great video. Maybe it's someone who you actually know isn't on the right side of these issues. Maybe it's someone that you don't know and you don't know where they are. There is a powerful impact, but that powerful impact that each of us have and all of us have together must be met by consistency on our end. And that is difficult. If there's anything that I have learned being a parent, consistency is hard, but man, consistency is what produces results that are lasting. So I think that's the chief lesson here. Consistency in our dollars, where we spend them, consistency in what we do and don't say and who we share it with. That this is a long march, but I'm starting to see cracks in the armor of this big media empire. And I think it's time for us to fall in line in a big battle formation behind some of these folks spearheading it and move forward. But it requires consistency. So there you go. That's it. That is Tucker in a nutshell, and all of the things behind it. Just the teeny little shred of Tucker, and all of what it represents is huge. But I think it's a conversation that all of us kind of know. Oh yeah, bad mainstream media, bad bias. But do we really understand, or do we just know what we've always known? Because there's really a lot of very big and important and terrifying things to understand, but there is something we can do about it. There are many things we can do about it. And hopefully we've scratched the surface of those today. So we'll close it down there. Don't want to go too long. Consistency, double underline. That's right. But thank you for joining us. Thank you, Andrew, for having this discussion with me again. I know, like I said, we covered this a little bit this week. And I tell you what, We will look forward to talking to everyone next Thursday. Same time, same place, noon here. Don't forget, go over to the website, sign up for our emails, phyllisschlafly.com. Like, share, and subscribe across the social medias. And go and buy a product that supports freedom so that we can bankrupt some of these people once and for all, because we all celebrated $7 billion off the market cap of Anheuser-Busch, but that brought them down from what, a total of 129 billion to 122. We got a few more billion to go. So let's start bringing these folks down and then speaking the truth in their absence as they scramble away from the lights being turned on. Sounds good. All right, we'll end it there. Thanks, Andrew. Thank you, everybody. And we will look forward to another Unauthorized Caucus next week at our very authorized time and day. We'll see you then. Have a good weekend, everybody.